Mitral valve disease is a disease of the valve, the central valve of the heart, called the mitral valve. It sits between the top left chamber and the bottom left chamber, the atrium and ventricle. And the mitral valve is a one-way door, if you will, that is kind of like two French doors that meet in the middle. There's a door frame in the doors, and the problem can occur when the valve begins to leak, or the two doors don't meet in the middle, or it becomes blocked, or what we call stenosis. And that's when the doors are fused shut or they're calcified. Let's start first with how the heart works. There's two top chambers and two bottom chambers. The blue or deoxygenated blood comes in from the right side, goes down through the right atrium, through what's called the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle, and it gets pumped to the lungs. The lungs then oxygenate the blood and bring it to the top left chamber, called the left atrium. Then it crosses this one-way door, the mitral valve, and it goes into the ventricle. The ventricle then squeezes, that's the main pumping chamber of the heart, the motor of the heart. It squeezes, and those two doors come to meet in the middle, and they close. And then all the blood goes through the other valve, the outdoor, called the aortic valve, to the rest of the body. Now, when there's a problem with the valve, the most common is mitral valve regurgitation or leaking mitral valve, secondary to what's called primary mitral regurgitation or degenerative valve disease, or what's commonly known as mitral valve prolapse. Now, when mitral valve prolapse occurs, it's 5% of the population, very, very common. That valve begins to sort of burp, if you will. Those leaflets don't come quite in the middle. And usually by about the fourth decade of life, this valve becomes from just prolapsing a little bit to actually disconnected. There's little cords that support the valve, kind of like parachute cords, that are attached to the pumping chamber or ventricle. And when one or two of those rupture, this is what happens with each heartbeat. And so blood goes back into the top left chamber and then back into the lungs. So what's common is that people develop shortness of breath. They can develop a stretching of that top chamber. When it stretches, the walls tend to fibrillate, or what's called atrial fibrillation. One can get a dry cough is very common.